This one truth helped me to go from resisting the messiness of growing and healing to giving myself space to not have to have it all together. You can learn this too, and today I'm going to share how for me it was worth it. I know some of us are exhausted, and the idea of embracing the messy parts of our healing and growth feels like a lot of cleanup work that's waiting on us. But I'm going to share a story with you first, and then I'm going to share some thoughts that shifted how I approached the whole evolution of where I've come from to where I am now. And these thoughts came to me in the middle of my journey, and they were really a very big epiphany for me, and they were a paradigm shift. So I'm going to take you back to 41 years ago. I'm getting ready to graduate from high school. I am excited about graduating, but my senior year really wasn't the best experience, and it had been a pretty rough year. My dad was in rehab. Our family was kind of, in the middle of huge transition and a lot of churn going on. And so the thought of graduating was both exciting and terrifying. Nobody in my family had ever gone to college before, and I was registered at the local college university in Dayton, and was had some scholarship money that was going to play a role in my ability to go there. But inside, I really wasn't that excited. I was looking forward to being free and done with high school, but I really wasn't that excited because I kind of had this feeling in the pit of my stomach that if I didn't get away, if I didn't completely get removed from what I had grown up in and an opportunity maybe to start over, I wasn't sure how things were going to come out. And to be honest, I had a lot of fears around that and was very much trying to figure out what is my path forward going to be. So the night of my graduation, I'm coming down the stairs and I'm looking for my family, and I see my mom and my sister up front sitting there. And I happen to look over the stairwell off to the right, and I see my dad, who I just mentioned had been in alcohol rehab, and he's standing on the side smoking a cigarette. And yes, back then you could do that. He's smoking a cigarette. He's unshowered, unshaven, and just not what I would have hoped him to be in that state for the night of my graduation. So something happened when I looked over and I saw him, and I just knew if I didn't get out of there, I felt like I was going to be smothered. And honestly, I really wasn't sure what my future would hold. So something clicked in me, and the next day I got up from being out the night before with my friends, and I packed my car and I moved out. And I spent the rest of that summer living in my sister's garage. And in the midst of the swirl of that particular season of my life, there were lots of things happening, lots of change. I was very excited to have my newfound freedom. And about midsummer, I came across an opportunity to actually go away to Bible college. And to say the least, it was very appealing to me and very much something I wanted to explore and to see if I could get away. So what I had though in front of me is there was going to be a cost one way or the other. So I'd already moved out from home. I knew that there were some hard feelings about that, and was living in my sister's garage. That wasn't tenable for the long haul, right? But I knew I was going to have to make some choices. There was going to be a cost to me. And the truth is, when we move on with life and we go from one version of ourselves to the next version of ourselves, there's always a cost. So for me, I was going to have to give up a relationship if I did this that I had the last couple years of high school, and one that was very important to me. I was risking family relationships already because I had moved out. I had no money really to go away and wasn't sure where I was going to get that. I was making a few bad choices that summer, nothing catastrophic, but very much was enjoying my freedom. And I knew I just needed to get away and freedom from that environment that had been really toxic for me. So it was at that point I was really aware there were two paths that I was going to have to choose, and one was going to be more costly than the other in the short term. But I ended up picking the path that took me out of the state. I went to Texas for 2 years, and it was the best decision that I ever made because it got me into a completely different environment with people who had a really positive influence on my life. And that ended up, leading me to the next place on my path, and the next place, and the next place. So the thing that I wanted to share that was a major truth to me is, as that journey has continued on over the years, I realized in the middle of it that we have to pick our hard. So everything is hard. It doesn't matter what path you take. There's hard on that path. And the truth is, we get to pick our hard. And so sometimes it's understanding that there's unknowns and there's a cost to pay no matter what path you're on, but that we can pick the one that's going to get us where we want to be in 1 year or 5 years or 10 years or 20, right? You're going to be somewhere in 5 years. You're going to be somewhere in 10 years. What are you going to pick that gets you to the place you want to be in 5 years or 10 years? And so this was the choice that was in front of me. And I was very clear that no matter which path I took, it was going to require a lot of effort. And to be honest, I wasn't sure what it was going to be like for me in a regular college scene. I was already allowed to do pretty much whatever I wanted through high school. And I knew that there were choices waiting for me that were probably going to be destructive to me. And I really wasn't sure where that would get me. The other thing I would say in that process is, I had already struggled with depression through junior high and on into high school. And so I knew if I took a path that was going to dump me out into a place where there weren't the right structures in place, it was probably not going to be a good outcome for me. All right. So it's understanding that hard is on any path that we take, but the outcome, and so the beginning can be the same, but the outcome can be very different. So I'm going to share a couple stories with you from the Bible that really kind of frame this in. So we have the prodigal son and the older brother. And I don't know if you know the story of the prodigal son, but he decides that he wants his inheritance in advance, and he asks his dad for it. And he decides to go off and just have a free-for-all. And so he does do that. And he ends up, so hard down and out that he ends up living, I believe, with the pigs and eating pig slop because he was out of money. He spent it all, and he spent it foolishly. But he decided to come home. And so when he gets near home, the father sees him and begins to run to him. And he forgives him. And I believe the son repents. And so the father puts a robe and a ring on him. Well, the older brother, who didn't rebel, he didn't ask for his inheritance in advance. He stayed, right? He did all the things. And he was very jealous of this younger brother who had done whatever he wanted to and squandered the money. He was very mad that the father had a celebration for his return. And one of the things that the father says to him is, everything I have is yours. We could have had a celebration anytime you wanted, but you chose to do the status quo. He didn't say those words, but I'm paraphrasing. So he decided to stay and do the thing that he was expected to do, but his heart was really not in it. And so there was this great jealousy. So that's just an example of two people who took two different paths, right? One of them learned and the other one didn't. And another example of this kind of, two paths is we have Esau and Jacob. And if you don't know that story, Esau was the firstborn son, so he's going to get all the inheritance. And he decides that actually, after a day of being out and he's tired and hungry, he decides to trade his birthright and his inheritance for a bowl of beans. And Jacob deceived him with the bowl of beans, and because he wanted the inheritance. So what's interesting is Jacob saw the value of the inheritance, and he was deceptive, but at least he saw the value. But then you have Esau, who didn't see the value, and instead he sold his birthright for a bowl of beans. Two different stories, two different outcomes, but the opportunity was essentially the same. Later on, Jacob wrestles with the angel of the Lord, and he really doesn't get the blessing until he admits who he is, which is he's a deceiver. So again, there's like these two divergent paths that can be chosen, and one chooses one and one chooses the other. So one of the points that I want to make in this is that, you can pick your hard, but it's understanding that there's a process of becoming, no matter which path that you take. There is there's trust and a process for the long haul. And even though you choose a path, that doesn't mean you're automatically going to get the outcome that you're looking for. So one of the scriptures I wanted to read to you in this is Hebrews, out of Hebrews 12. It says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now he's seated in the place of honor beside God's throne. Think of all the hostility he endured from sinful people, and then you won't become weary and give up. After all, you've not yet given your lives in the struggle against sin." So he's talking about here, the writer of Hebrews, or she, I don't think we really know who wrote the book of Hebrews, but they're talking about that there's this race to run. There's this thing that needs us to have endurance in order for us to end up in the place that we want to be at the end. I think life is very much the same way, right? There's a journey ahead of you either way. You can pick the journey that is one that you're choosing, and that maybe it has hard stuff in it, but maybe the end of it is so fruitful and so good that it's worth the pain that might be part of the journey, right? Or you can take the easy path and maybe end up in a place that you don't really want to be, that it's not really a life that you enjoy, or that you're seeing fruit from it. Either way, our journeys are more of a marathon than a sprint, right? And that in many ways, because of what life throws at us, we have to have endurance either way. So what if you picked the way that maybe was less common to go, but that the outcome of that is so much more beneficial? So one of the things I want to do is I want to read a poem to you really quick from Robert Frost. And I'm sure you've heard this poem before, but it has never been more meaningful to me than when I was prepping to do this video. So it's The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. "Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere, ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." So I felt like that was really important to read, because the truth is they're both paths are hard, but they do not have the same outcome. We're not promised the outcome, so to speak, at least not here in earthly terms. But if we're following Jesus, we are promised the outcome. We're promised that we'll sit with him for eternity. We'll be with him in eternity. And so the paths are varied. They're very different in the outcome and where they lead. One thing that I would say, even though it's a marathon and it's not a sprint, there's so much good in the process, right? We know, if we think about Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. I'm going to have everything I need because he's going to provide it, right? He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. God will renew your strength in the middle of the hard, in the middle of the mess, as you look to him, as you seek him, as you depend on him to lead you. He will not let you down, no matter how hard it might seem at any given point. You cannot judge your story when you're still in the middle of it, right? It's premature to judge a story when the story hasn't ended. So we have to be careful to not do that. It goes on to say, even when I walk through the darkest valley, I won't be afraid. Your rod, for you're close by me, your rod and your staff protect and comfort me. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. You will honor me by anointing my head with oil. My cup overflows with blessings. Surely your goodness and unfailing love will pursue me. And it's the idea of mercy, goodness and mercy running after us, like chasing us. It's a really cool word picture. All the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. So, I think a lot of times and I'm guilty of this, all we can do sometimes is focus on the hard parts. But I promise you that the Lord meets us along the way. He will meet you along the way. You will find him in ways that you never thought. And in the middle of the mess, you will look over and he will be beside you in the middle of the mess. He will not walk away from you. People will walk away from you, but he won't. He'll be in the middle of the mess with you, whispering to you things that nobody else would ever know except him. So, in the one side note is we can make the journey longer. We can make it harder. Unfortunately, we can make it harder. People sometimes will say, "Well, you can't mess up. You can't mess up the process." Yes, you can. You absolutely can. You can mess it up, and you can make the journey longer. But the Lord, He's so near, and He will always be there to help. Nothing that you have or do is wasted, and that's what I love about following Jesus. Is He takes even the disappointments. As long as we give them back to him, we bring them back to him as an offering, he takes those and adds them to us. One of the worst jobs I ever had, did not use any of my gifts, did not use any of the things I'm good at. I had no idea how any good was ever going to come out of this job. It was a horrid experience. Terrible boss, terrible environment, did not enjoy any part of it. And you know what happened? My next job, which had all the things I was good at, and this one other thing that I got from the job that was so horrible. And I felt like the Lord smiled at me like, you should have known I would use this. You should have known I would make good of this. And he did. So I'm going to bring this, to try to come into the last four things I want to share with you real quick. And that health and healing emotionally is a process. There's a lot that goes into that. Becoming takes a long time, especially when you come out of an alcoholic home, or you come out of childhood abuse, or you come out of an abusive marriage, or some other thing, some other awful thing that has happened in your life. It takes a long time. And if you just read the Velveteen Rabbit book, you'll see that it takes a long time. But those tears, those things that we lose become seeds, and God uses them to bring fruit into our life. That along with that healing and health emotionally, the Lord creates incredible personal growth. Oftentimes it's career growth, especially out of the things that are job related. It can end up being your best thing that ever happened, is that you got let go, or you got mistreated so that you ended up leaving. And then it's like the upset becomes the set up, and God uses it to do great things. It also creates growth in our faith. It creates growth in how we see ourselves and our identity. And then lastly, a lot of times those hard seasons, the seasons of lack where you didn't have what you needed, where things were just ultra rough, it can teach us to steward abundance and to leave a different legacy. And that's what it has done in my life. All of those things. God has brought healing emotionally and to my health. He's brought immense personal growth and career growth. Every time I've moved on to another job, I've gotten 20 to 30% raise. It's been incredible what the Lord has done. It has caused my faith to grow when I've had to wrestle with things and figure out who am I in the middle of this. And it's caused me to learn how to steward abundance and leave a different legacy for my kids and grandkids. So I'm going to close this by asking you one question, and I want you to think about this question. What are you choosing? Are you choosing the short-term easy path or the long-haul path that's going to create a better legacy for you and for your family? That's the question. Which path are you taking? Because there's two paths and they're both hard, but they have very different outcomes. So with that, until next video, be real with God. He can handle it. Trust, seek Jesus, and be transformed, because the transformation is where the magic happens, and you look in the mirror one day and you go, oh my word, I am a different person. This has transformed me in ways I never thought hard stuff could. So anyway, talk to you soon. See you in the next video. Make sure you subscribe. Talk to you soon.